So today I get this opportunity to talk about carbonless architecture with explaining the power of design and architecture for decarbonization. I definitely would start with my favorite project, the project that inspired me to be an architect, that is The Falling Waters, and with Frank Lloyd Wright's words that study nature, love nature, stay close to nature, and nature will never fail you. With these thoughts, today let me take you through a short journey. Definitely, we had architect Santoshji taking us through what carbon is, how decarbonization works, and how GNFZ actually leads to net zero. So, trying to understand carbon neutrality in buildings has been very simple, and we know that going through net zero has been the route. And definitely, we realize that a lot of words we come across when we talk decarbonization, that is energy efficiency, electrification, renewables, HVAC, major energy consumers, greenhouse gases, climate action, and much more. Friends, talking about carbonless architecture, we all know that the building sector has been responsible for about and probably more than 40% of global emissions. And when we are talking emissions, it is 11% directly coming from building materials. Architect is responsible for not only the material selection, but the partial design, which is the solar passive or the main design part of it, which drives the entire project. So, when we talk about carbonless architecture, architect becomes the first line of action person. And that is why the approach has to be transformative with designing the space and construction activity focusing on reducing carbon emissions, trying innovative materials, efficient design, and having a holistic perspective. Climate change and ecological preservation definitely remains one of the major parameters. So, architects and designers adopt passive and climate-based approach while their counterparts, or I would say their complementers who are the consultants, they enhance the efficiency and definitely select the right systems considering overall comfort. So friends, what we actually do is we aim to fight climate change and pollution, reduce CO2 emissions, help counteract loss of species, organic ingredients. We are supporting saving trees. We are promoting the 3R principle and much more towards the larger goal, which is the climate and the earth saving. Definitely coming to the core concept of carbon. Architects are supposed to be the major influencers in terms of carbon for a building life cycle, embodied carbon as well as operational carbon. So if we realize about 10 to 15% scope of embodied carbon reduction remains with the architects, while for operational carbon, it is 15 to 40%. The adjoining table can actually show us how architects and other consultants stand responsible during the various phases of a building life cycle. Friends, when we are talking construction, we are also talking the design stage. We are talking operation, we are talking long-term O&M throughout the stage. We are also talking retrofit nowadays on a large area, and we cannot ignore it. While before going to that, we are also looking at the end of life or again revamping the project. So, talking about operational and embodied carbon from architect's perspective, one thing which has been realized, which is really scary, that is the embodied carbon percentage has been going up. And today it is projected that by 2050, it will absolutely reach to about 49%. When we are anticipating this, that means we are reducing the life cycle of the entire built environment. Hence, both must be addressed to achieve true carbon neutrality. Of course, Santoshji mentioned about different tools which are measuring the for carbon assessments, talking about LCA, even analysis with scope 1, 2, 3, many other things, as well as building certifications. Just going a foot separate about building certifications, I would definitely like to mention that we have the generic benefits already known, where we can actually see that reduction in basic usage, basic resources going towards renewables can actually help us having a better environment. But do we also realize that this approach through a building certification is actually based on one very, very important principle, that is integration and holistic approach to sustainability. While talking about holistic life cycle approach, we definitely talk about and emphasize on material sourcing. Of course, during design stage as well as during the other stages, we have to go back and forth for this. And we have to look at long-term balance and resilience. So when we are talking about holistic life cycle approach, we usually take a turn and look back at biophilic design, net zero approach, or even building management systems, which can help us towards our common goal. While the architects often focus upon passive approach and climate design, choice of materials, and also integration of services with design. So, friends, a quick roadmap for any project through an architect's perspective can be solar passive design, optimization of services. Definitely, estimation never goes away from their scope, estimation, monitoring, gaps, improvisation, records, analysis, and definitely the journey towards the net zero. So, going ahead, when an architect stands for designing any project for sustainability, the approach revolves around the psychometry, the climate, following the sun path, ensuring climate compatibility for inner spaces, activities, heat gain, relevant material and strategies for that, choosing local materials, performances, thermal comfort, and definitely many more. So any strategy that is supporting the purpose, space, and aesthetics will be a sustainable strategy from architect's point of view. I'm just quickly going through slides. Definitely you all have seen all these images, but I will go through it because any architectural presentation which is relating to climate, sustainability, or even carbonless architecture cannot miss them. So yes, we know how a typical building works in terms of passive analysis. We are having different types of sun movement, climatic strategies, and winter sun, summer sun, and looking at all these aspects of sun path analysis, we define a typical space and orientation basis the climate for that particular region. Along with that, the next step also comes in selecting the system, which can be passive if location and orientation helps us. So of course, location orientation of the site for shadows, shades also matter, and the right orientation will give you the right and right efficiency in terms of overall building performance. Going next is some sustainable or passive strategies that can help basis the climate and the design and the typology of the building. And all these strategies definitely look forward and help for saving up to 40% of the building energy mass. So cross ventilation, insulation, having courtyards, other kind of strategies, radiant cooling, radiant heating, wind towers, all these strategies stand very, very important when an architect is designing along with the vegetation. So ideally, the landscape is defined, as a next step of architecture and rather in combination to it. We often mistake a landscape to be a separate element or a patch element at the later stage, which is not the case. Landscape should always go hand in hand, and this proves a very important strategy when it comes to carbon-free architecture. Few more views to actually define the renewable energy part of it, the right plantation going right up to the area where you have maximum horizontal radiations coming in, going with SRI paints or materials which are heat reflecting, then going with the passive approach, and definitely looking at features which are under design, energy, water, materials, and of course waste. So a vision of an architect definitely revolves around all these things, and most importantly, comfort. So with all sustainable parameters, architects usually aim to design for uniqueness, functionality, purpose, and the architecture word or the design to remain intact. Comfort and satisfaction, which is also realized by the end users, third party certification, happiness index, definitely long term effective maintenance, but all of this within the cost. So, looking at that, let us discuss a few case studies here. Friends, I might go over about 2-3 minutes, but please bear with me. The team can definitely let me know if I'm losing my time. But I think a few case studies here can definitely help us to define how right carbonless architecture can work to the best or the optimum level. I'm restricting myself to the architecture part as I'm aware that my colleagues will also be covering materials and other efficient technology sections. So looking at that, the first and foremost building that we all are aware is the Green Business Center, which is CII headquarters, Hyderabad, India's first net zero building. If you see the building, it's beautifully defined architecture having first of its kind renewable energy implications or installations, also having bifocal solar panels in the entire campus, wind towers to demonstrate how ventilation can be served in the best possible way with all the possible resources as a building that defines walking the talk. So definitely a net zero carbon building also, which is first of its kind in India. Going next, I would just enhance upon one of the buildings in Pune, which is a retrofit building. It's a 45-year-old building which came for retrofit, and then they wanted to be under certification program, and that is the Bank of Maharashtra headquarters building. Now, if we see the sun path of this building, because it's a retrofit building, they had a lot of limitations in terms of space and design, but with the right architectural approach or the fenestration or material choices, we could define the building with right approach. So taking into account the habitable spaces, the spaces which have the potential to go green, trying to use the minimum glass on the facade side with low VLT. VLT is visual light transmittance, because we had to create a noise barrier on this side being the main road. That is how the glass used what was defined for a particular substance. While on the other side of the building, we had glass with better VLT because we wanted more light coming in from this side, as we had the open part and the building which was exposed to the occupied areas as well. Well, the other side, it was no view. We had an adjacent building, and that is why, again, we tried to create a vision barrier with high VLT glass. So, accordingly, the glass was chosen. Garden view, again high VLT, but it was a partial vision barrier. So accordingly, the glass that was chosen had a typical different approach. So though the building was old, we tried experimenting with the glass, because glass becomes one of the most critical material in the overall sense as far as the architecture part is concerned. So taking care of course, heat island effect, roof, non-roof, outdoor lighting pollution, O&M, with landscape LPDs also taking into consideration indoor LPD, exterior LPD. The building today stands to be one of the major, it's a IGBC Gold certified existing building, but a major example where it is having 100% net zero waste kind of thing. EPI, which is achieved, is a very good EPI with 84.55. And along with that, this building has been transformed in the right ways, which is now also a green landmark, which is championing sustainability. That is how they say, and few pictures and the measures they have gone across. I'll just skip through it quite fast so you all can browse the thing. And we have ongoing monitoring, because it is not a one-time activity, as Santoshji rightly mentioned. So we are going with the right comfort survey for the occupants as well as the monitoring systems on. Taking the next project into consideration, I have tried to include again a case study with glass, but a very, very different approach here, because having the plan this way, it's a showroom come service center for BMW. and trying to analyze the HVAC areas and the areas which are under natural ventilation. So this side we will have the treated fresh air coming in, while the other sides we have the natural ventilation. The thickness of the arrows will actually tell us the windrows and the intensity of the winds coming in for the project. So entrance, we had the buffer area, tree shading, canopy, and a glass maze created. So if you see the building, we had HVAC zones defined. We had zones defined for occupied spaces where more light is required, and accordingly, a glass maze was created. So typical glass, but having different shades and emphasizing on the building highlight as well, creating an architectural feature as well as substantiating the interior spaces. Another project I would quickly show is Suhana Corporate House, wherein we started working on the ECM. So, definitely the design credit goes to Tao Architecture, but along with our team, a lot of back and forth workings and ECMs were done to avoid direct heat gain. We had the wind flow defined, and 100% shading was to be ensured. So all these things were done, and later on with the plan we experimented on what can be the best elevation possible, envelope possible, also considering the challenge on site, which was odor. So even the windrows was studied, and accordingly what we have today is, with the solar passive approach, optimized envelope, good materials, daylight ventilation is optimum, landscape is also tried to be created in all the possible areas with odor control strategies. So we started with elevation like this, which in turn, this is a render, which in turn, the front elevation was this. Again, it's a render. Now this is the actual photo of the project. So apart from the elevation, there was the right vegetation also, which was enhanced. You might find a lot of trees and tree cover, which is mixed, but this is an organic way the trees are there, which are being preserved. So again, a landmark, which is LEED Platinum certified project. Going further, I would definitely mention, friends, that architects and energy efficiency go hand in hand. So designing first line of climate action is architectural responsibility, with 60 to 70% of direct building energy saving. So since we have Santoshji also here, and today morning I was presenting for GNFZ, I thought of including this picture here. So we did work for Global Network for Zero, around 4 projects. And we have Suhana's another project, which is Triple Net Zero already. And another Triple Net Zero, which is Ajmera, which is ongoing. We have another project with Hindustan Unilever, which is net zero water, net zero energy. It's a university. So definitely net zero is possible, but we need to have a proper approach. It is not a one-time certification. It's a long roadmap. Going further, my dear friends, if I have to talk of elements in carbon-free approach, we really need to wonder. Yes,
Excuse me, ma'am. I'm
yes,
sorry. I
the
have
timing,
to.
timing.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So
thank
if
you
you
so
can
much.
just quickly touch
Yes, I will.
upon.
I will be very
Yeah,
quick.
yeah. Thank you.
So materials, carbon capture storage, energy systems with renewable, adaptive reuse, and looking at all these aspects will definitely make big sense. Having closer connect to the nature, and with sustainability, innovation, efficiency, harmony, aesthetics, addition can definitely give you the best part of architecture: comfort, adaptation, resilience with a sense of achievement, experience and feel, and integration. For net zero also we can have the same thing, and definitely most important is satisfaction, community, biodiversity, and climate change action. So coming back to my favorite project, Falling Water still stands as a greatest masterpiece for its dynamism, integration. Have we ever spoken about carbon assessment of this building, or even cost that goes in making of this building? Friends, architects should actually create landmarks like this that people forget all the other part, because we know it has already been taken care of. So looking at this project, definitely that gives me the inspiration that this is possible. I don't want to summarize it, but definitely will mention that we should now have a smart approach to sustainability. By smart, I definitely mean it has to be specific, measurable, attainable, or achievable, realistic, and time bound. Apart from that, when I'm talking smart for project specific, let it be site specific, measured impacts, abled design, having the reduce, reuse, recycle, repurpose principles with the right targets. Thank you so much for this opportunity, ACE Update. I'm grateful.